Hey coaches, today's Health Coach Radio episode is a solo episode where I'm teaching you one of my favorite coaching concepts. It's called self-determination theory. I know that sounds very academic and dry, but trust me, I'm going to teach this to you in a fun way that's extremely actionable. And I think you'll recognize a lot of the components of self-determination theory, including intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, including process goals versus outcome goals. We talk about active listening. It's really about empowering the client to embody the reason why they want to make change in the first place. It is a crucial health coaching skill. And I teach it to kind of a high level in this episode. So grab a pen and paper, get ready to take some notes, and fold some self-determination theory into your coaching calls this week and just see how your clients soar. Please enjoy.
Hi, I'm Erin Power. I'm a health coach, a health coaching educator and mentor, and your host of Health Coach Radio. This podcast delves into the art, science, and business of health coaching. Whether you're aspiring to land a coaching dream job or to embark on your own entrepreneurial adventure, we cover it all. Our mission is to help you grow your career, elevate your income, change the lives of the clients who need your help, and leave a lasting mark in this rapidly growing field. It's time for health coaches to make an impact. It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Hey coaches, Erin here. And today we're going to talk about a topic that quietly underpins every single client transformation, every conversation, every sticking point, every win, every client who ghosts you, I don't know what happened, she just disappeared, every story you've ever experienced as a coach or ever will experience as a coach. We're talking about self-determination theory, or SDT for short. Now, before your eyes glaze over, because this sounds too academic or theoretical, let me assure you this is one of the most useful real-world applicable concepts you'll ever use in your coaching practice. It has to do with motivation, but not in the way the wellness world usually talks about it. When I teach this to my health coaching students, I do feel as though it can get a little lost in translation. So my hope for this episode, this conversation, is to help you just fully understand and recognize what self-determination is and why it's so darn important. So self-determination theory helps us understand one fundamental truth. People don't change because we push them. They change because something inside them wants to change. So in this conversation, I'm going to teach you the architecture of that something inside. You'll learn how to spot it, how to support it, how to nurture it, protect it, because when you get this right, your clients stick around. They start to fly. And your work as a coach starts to feel not only effortless, but extremely impactful. So let's dive in. What is self-determination theory? Well, self-determination theory is a framework of human motivation developed by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. Basically, it boils down to this. Humans are naturally driven to grow, evolve, and become more whole when their basic psychological needs are met. So this is not about willpower. It's not about discipline. It's not about following the plan. It's not about dangling rewards or enforcing consequences. It's about the quality of their motivation. Am I doing this because I want to or because I feel like I have to? So coaching doesn't work when people feel like they have to change. It works when people feel safe, capable, and free enough to want to change. So what are these three basic psychological needs that I referenced a second ago? Well, at the heart of SDT are these three needs. Think of them like three legs of a stool, the old three-legged stool metaphor, right? If one leg is missing, the stool wobbles and falls over. So your client's motivation wobbles if any one of these three is missing. Let's break them down. Grab a pen and paper, write this down. This is important. Number one, autonomy. I'm a big fan of this one. This is the need to feel like this is my choice. When clients feel coerced or pressured, even subtly, they rebel. Or they'll comply for a little while and then they'll disappear. By the way, this is why we can't force anybody to work with us. I get this question a lot from coaches. How can I convince people to work with me? I can see all these people that need my help. How do I convince them? You can't. They're not at a stage of readiness to be ready to jump into coaching. The idea of this needing to be their choice is extremely important from jump. From the moment they engage with you, book a call in your calendar, they've decided that they're ready. There's a state of readiness, and it's their choice to do it. Now, as you go through the discovery process and enrolling this client, you want to really zero in on, is this an autonomous choice? Are they doing it because they want to? So here's a coaching application to try to really foster autonomy inside the container of the coaching relationship. For example, instead of saying, you should do this, right? So if a client's asking you a question or putting forward a struggle they're having, instead of saying, oh, here's what you should do, try saying instead, what's one habit this week that feels doable for you? What's one change this week that you could make? What's one intention you could set for this week? This promotes ownership, and ownership is everything. So ask a question, get some buy-in, some embodiment of the change they want to make and what they will make. This is pure autonomy. Humans are autonomous creatures. We don't really want to be told what to do. And by the way, you might get that on discovery calls. I just want someone to tell me what to do. When somebody says that to you, they've kind of already lost their autonomy. And I would encourage you to encourage them to try to get it back. I do this all the time on discovery calls. Take me through a time when somebody told you what to do. How well did that work for you? They've been told what to do. They're coming to you because they need something different. And what's really missing in the wellness industry is the autonomy piece. There's a lot of goal in autonomy. The second basic psychological need is competence. This is the need to feel capable and effective. So if your client feels like they're failing every week, they'll start to believe they're not cut out for this. They'll start to identify as a failure, a person who fails. And as soon as they don't feel capable, they quit. They stop trying. And really, quitting is one of the problems that coaches can help our clients solve, right? So a lot of clients will say they've tried a lot of programs to get healthy. None of them were sustainable. Very common soundbite. Well, when I hear that phrase, I think to myself, well, this person quit. Nothing was sustainable because they quit. Why did they quit? And I think people quit because they feel incompetent. They feel like they're not doing it right or not doing it right enough or good enough. So here's a coaching application, real simple one, very strongly encouraged. Constantly celebrate the smallest wins. Not to be a cheerleader. We don't want a health coaching relationship to feel like cheerleader camp where you're just rah-rahing every little thing. But this is to foster the skill of acknowledging wins. Okay, because in the wellness industry, we have kind of conditioned our clients to really focus on the outcome goal, the after picture in the before and after, without putting any emphasis on the tiny little, pretty boring, basic processes that have to happen along the way. So I always envision a staircase, right? Very commonly used metaphor in the realm of coaching or behavior change is the staircase. You're at the bottom of the staircase. You want to get to the top of the staircase. People think they're going to jump to the top of the staircase, but instead what they're going to do is take the teeny tiniest little steps easy and effortlessly up the staircase. These are tiny process goals. And while they're working through these tiny process goals, you must teach them, train them, encourage them to celebrate the tiny wins. This reinforces their ability as they go. So you followed through on going to bed at 10 p.m. 3 nights this week like we agreed on. That's amazing. What helped you to do that? So instead of saying, great job, Sally, you went to bed on time. Good job. We drop in, we say, you followed through on that promise you made to yourself. What helped you do that? Have them start to think about the thing they did to show up for themselves in the way they wanted to show up in that tiny little moment, right? In this example I just gave, the theoretical goal the coach and the client met together was Sally was going to get to bed by 10 p.m. Great job, Sally. You did that 3 nights this week. Amazing. What helped you do that? Then have Sally or your client answer that back. Well, I was motivated to do it because I know that when I don't go to bed before 10, I always feel really tired the next day. And I was kind of tired of feeling tired, This is called change talk. And this is actually one of the reasons why I really do encourage you to include a small gathering of wins at the start of every coaching session. It's a good way to start. First of all, it's a nice rapport building exercise, but it also starts the session off or encourages this concept of change talk. And change talk basically means here's all the reasons why I want to change, I need to change, I'm enjoying change. And the opposite of change talk, just to close the loop, is called sustain talk, which is here's all the reasons I'm going to stay stuck. So, for example, going back to Sally, instead of saying, you might say instead, Sally, you went to bed before 10 a.m. 3 nights this week. Why didn't you do 5 like we talked about? And Sally will say, well, I don't know. I started scrolling and then I started binge watching this dumb show on Netflix. And I always do this. I always self-sabotage. Now Sally's in the spiral of sustain talk. Now, we do want to have real conversations with our clients about, the magnitude of their goal and the confidence they have in succeeding on them. But if you take a moment to celebrate the win that's in play. And really, the main thing this does is it encourages change talk. And it also helps clients start to sort of train the muscle of acknowledging the small wins. I liken this actually a lot to a gratitude practice. If you've ever done a gratitude practice, which I'm sure a lot of you have, you know that at first it feels kind of like friction-y. It's like, what am I grateful for? I don't know. I just woke up. I'm grateful for my cat. I'm grateful for my cup of tea. And I don't know, I'm grateful for my duvet. Like, it's hard to scrounge up what you're grateful for. At least I find it hard. But what I found, and I'd love to know what you think, is as I just persevered with practicing simple gratitude, I then was more able to observe gratitude throughout the day. I remember somebody cut me off in traffic, but they used their turn signal. So I guess they didn't technically cut me off. Well, they did. But I was grateful. I said, I'm so grateful that at least they used their turn signal. So I had at least a nanosecond of a heads up that you were going to veer into my lane. I was truly grateful. So anyway, the point is, I think that celebrating small wins, encouraging change talk, and really getting clients into the spirit of appreciating the process goals along the way, the little steps on the staircase, it begets more success, more change talk. Change talk begets more change talk. Competence begets more competence. The third psychological need that is a part of self-determination theory is relatedness. And this is the need to feel seen, understood, and connected. So I love this for health coaching. The way I envision health coaching is a relationship between coach and client. And ideally, when you're getting started, you're doing this on a one-on-one basis. And then eventually, as your business and your practice grows and your success accumulates, you'll probably have to scale that to small groups and maybe large groups eventually. But at the end of the day, we're humans. We're having a human-to-human connection. And by the way, this is all going to transcend AI. I know you're worried about it. Don't worry, because we're still humans. We still have to have the human-to-human connection. But if your client just feels like another number in your roster, or you're coaching from a script, or you're staying in your program and making the client stick to the program, and you're not really factoring their unique lifestyle in, they won't connect with the program and they won't connect with you. And when people don't feel connected, they don't really feel safe enough to be vulnerable, which is essential for change, because change is really hard. Biologically, our brains are wired to be very uncomfortable about change. There's a vulnerability in change, a biological vulnerability. Your client is not a weak person because they struggle against change. Change is biologically hard. And we need to have this vulnerable, safe space kind of energy in the relationship in order to nurture really true, meaningful, lasting change. So we have the opportunity as health coaches to literally relate to our clients. And this is really cool because you could think about this right from the beginning of your coaching career, which is, what am I going to specialize in? Who am I going to help? This is the whole niching exercise that you inevitably have to go through when you start a coaching business. Who can I uniquely help? And so right out the gate, you are relating to a tiny fraction of the audience, right? We're related right from jump. And then in the coaching conversation, there's ways to construct the coaching relationship to encourage more relatedness. Here's an example. Reflection, mirroring their language. Mirroring, reflecting, as we call it in coaching, is an extremely empathetic way of communicating, right? So when the client says anything, you might reflect that back to them. The client might say, well, I really struggled this week because my kids were off school and I had every intention of making good breakfast, but we just started running around the house, getting out the door. We had stuff to do, day camps, it just all fell apart. And I found in my current sort of schedule, the breakfast thing is just not happening for me. And you can reflect that back. It sounds like it's a really difficult time for you to get these breakfasts in. Maybe we can think of a different way to make this work for you. So reflect it back. Feel that send that empathic message, mirroring their language, mirroring their feelings. Pick up what they're saying, pick up what they're feeling, reflect it back. Make sure that you're really, truly understanding them. You're relating to them. In order to do this appropriately and well, you have to be really listening. I mean, this is communication skills that will take you places. Okay. The act of listening, truly hearing, and reflection or mirroring the language back is one of the components of active listening. So in the active listening world, there's this acronym called OARS. It's a quick little parenthetical side lesson for you. OARS: open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. So you ask an open-ended question. Sally, last week we had a goal to eat a nice substantial protein for breakfast 4 days out of 7 this week. Take me through how that went for you. Open-ended question. Now Sally has to respond with something more than a yes or no question, right? And I could have said, did you have your breakfast 4 days out of the 7 this week? And she'll say no. And we just had asked a closed-ended question that's not going to really foster related conversation. It's not going to foster relatedness. So you ask this open-ended question. Sally replies back. You reflect back. Sounds like it's really difficult to get breakfast in during the weekdays now that your kids are off school. And Sally will say more because you reflected it back. Summaries come in occasionally after a period of time. You'll summarize kind of where we're at in the conversation. And just to kind of finish this lesson here, the A in the OARS acronym, affirmation. To me, affirmations are used when appropriate. We don't want to sprinkle too many affirmations in there, but OARS is the acronym for active listening. But quite frankly, gang, active listening is simply listening. It's the basic human sort of curiosity of wanting to hear what another person says. So just tap into your basic human curiosity and listen. And when you listen and practice reflection, you'll get better at listening. And the better you get at listening and hearing and being connected to your client, the more related they will feel to you. So these are their 3 basic psychological needs that form the basis of social self-determination theory. We have autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Keto, carnivore, paleo, AIP, SCD, low FODMAP, so many diets, so much confusion. And if health coaches are having a hard time keeping up, imagine how clients must feel. To make sense of it all, Primal Health Coach Institute partnered with registered dietitian and health coach Martha Tettenborn to create a comprehensive functional therapeutic diet specialist certification. This flexible online course dives deep into the many different types of therapeutic diets. You'll learn the purpose of each of these diets and how to help your clients map out a nutritional plan to resolve their specific health issues. As a certified functional therapeutic diet specialist, you'll help people reach a deeper understanding of food as medicine and transform their lives for the better. Find out more at primalhealthcoach.com.
Now let's kind of go back to the top here, talking again about motivation. Remember, earlier I said the client will change because they want to change, not because somebody else wants them to. This is truly the difference between what's known as intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And this is the heart of the matter. Extrinsic motivation is when someone is doing something for a reward or to avoid punishment or because someone else wants them to do it. I want to lose weight so my doctor gets off my back or my wife gets off my back. I'm doing this program so I can fit into my dress for the high school reunion. There's nothing wrong with these goals, but they are extrinsic motivation. They don't really come from deep within. So a client who, think about the word self-determination, which is a hyphenated word. So it is one word, self-determination. We are self-determined, determination of the self. How many ways can I say it? But it has to come from inside the self. And wanting to look hot and impressive at the high school reunion is not exactly a self-determined, intrinsically motivated goal. It's very extrinsic. Now, a person can have that as a starting point goal, and through thoughtful questioning and active listening, you can get into the real why underneath that goal. So I want to lose weight so my wife stops scolding me. Well, why is it important for your wife to stop scolding you? And your client might say, well, I know she's just worried about me and I don't want her to be worried. And why is that important to you? And then he might say, well, we have a family, we have a life, we have a beautiful life together. And if she's worried, I'm also worried. To be honest with you, I'm worried about my health. Boom, there's an intrinsic motivator, right? We just got to it eventually, right? Intrinsic motivation is when someone's doing something because it aligns with their values. values-based goal setting. This is something I teach my coaching students as well. Maybe that'll be a future episode, how to do values-based goal setting. So I want to feel energized in my own skin because I'm an adventurous person that wants to go out on hikes and travel the world and feel energetic while doing so. I had a client the other day, prospective client, whose reason for reaching out to me is because she wants to be a fun grandma. I want to be a fun grandma. There's lots of boring grandmas. She said, my step grandson, there's like a blended family situation going in here, already has 2 other grandmas and they're boring. And I want to be the fun grandma. That's cool. That's a good intrinsic motivator. I want to be strong enough to hike with my grandkids, something like that, right? So again, extrinsic motivation can and often does start the journey. But if we don't shift toward intrinsic motives, it just won't be sustainable. There's just less buy-in, quite frankly. Because there's less self-determination. They're not determined of the self. They're determined by some outside factor. And that is a fleeting source of motivation. So as coaches, our job is to help our clients transition from external reasons to internal ones. Here's how you know a client may be stuck focusing and relying too much on extrinsic motivation. They might say things like, I just need someone to hold me accountable. I just need someone to tell me exactly what to eat. If you pay for it, I know I'll do it. Those all sound like really determined statements, but they're not from within. Let me say them again. I need someone to hold me accountable. Well, accountability actually is an inside job. Your client has to be accountable to themselves. And what are they going to be accountable to? Their intrinsically motivated values-based goals. They have to be accountable to themselves. So we have to get serious about, like, why is this important to you? Because you'll only stay accountable to this process if it matters to you. The other one that comes up all the time is, I just need someone to tell me exactly what to eat. And that couldn't be more obviously extrinsically motivated, right? The person has basically disembodied and they're just like, just give me the meal plan. I'll put it in my mouth and hope for the best that it works out. There's no embodiment of motivation there at all. So, I always gently drive this conversation because I get this one a lot because I work on weight loss with women and they'll say, I just need you to tell me what to do. And it's like, Sally, I'm certain you've tried some other programs before where you were told what to do. Tell me how that worked for you. And through through active listening and just pure human curiosity, we can get to the fact that Sally has tried that before and didn't stick with it. It wasn't sustainable. And the reason it wasn't sustainable is because she quit. And the reason she quit is because it didn't matter to her enough. So when your clients say these aren't bad science. These are just opportunities to coach differently. And I really would encourage you to really practice this type of communication so that you can coach better and have more interesting, impactful, life-changing, transformational outcomes with your clients. Now, coaches, here are a few ways we accidentally squash the self-determined motivation of our clients. Number 1 is overprescribing or telling clients exactly what to do with no flexibility. Sometimes I think that coaches think this is what coaching is. And I see a lot of this on my social feed, coaches who deliver meal plans or summer shred programs, and it's just download this guide and it's very prescriptive without factoring the client in. And quite frankly, when I went to nutritionist school, because I'm qualified as a nutritionist, I had to do meal plans as part of my credentialing, and I absolutely hated it. I was making no meaningful improvement in anybody's life by giving them a meal plan. But it goes back to the kind of that earlier statement, which is clients think they need a meal plan, but what we want to encourage them is to do something that's more embodied and self-determined. So overprescribing, telling clients exactly what to do is one of the pitfalls that squashes self-determined motivation. And it kind of like the archetype I think of when I think of the overprescribing coach is the old personal trainer with the clipboard, counting the sets and reps, which is great in the personal trainer relationship. But in the coaching relationship, this is a partnership. It is a very, very two-way conversation, and you're not actually the boss of it. More on that in a second. Another way that coaches can undermine self-determination is over-celebrating outcomes. This is the cheerleader camp paradigm, right? Wow, good job, Sally, you lost 3 pounds, woohoo! Instead of a slight shift in language, wow, you really honored your needs this week and the results are amazing. So do you hear that tiny little shift? Because if I say, wow, you lost 3 pounds on my weight loss program, it's working. That's a little bit more about me. And it also is kind of an extrinsic then motivation. Now, we want to celebrate, for example, in a weight loss program, somebody losing weight is an amazing outcome. But there's a way we can language the celebration. Wow, you honored your needs this week, Sally. Can you see how the choices you made this week really shore up to your long-term outcome goal of being a fun grandma or whatever the thing is, right? So, it's a good idea to connect these small little celebrations of wins back to the larger outcome goal, the things that were discussed in the intake form. I think the intake form is a really useful tool that you want to reflect back on often, because typically in an intake form, you're going to be gathering your client's main health goals. And I would encourage you to take that a step deeper in your intake form and get a good intrinsic motivation. Why are you doing this, right? Then you can come back to those intrinsic motivation goals when your client is celebrating small wins. So we don't want to cheerlead. We want to acknowledge success without over validation or over celebration. The third way that we can undermine self-determination is by over rescuing, jumping into fix and spin wrenches on the plan. Oh, this client's having a hard time. I better adjust their macros, or maybe I need to figure out a new supplement to give them, instead of letting them actually struggle and build resilience. So does that sound counterintuitive, I wonder? Because if a person wants to have a long-term outcome, which they do, obviously, this is actually skill development. They have to develop the skills to be the kind of person who succeeds. And what does success require? It requires some perseverance. It requires resilience. It requires some bootstrapping sometimes. So if a client is struggling, lean into the struggle a little bit. What can we learn from it? And don't be so quick to fix the struggle. Over the years, just a quick anecdote, I've lengthened my program. I have a weight loss program for women, and I've lengthened it from 8 weeks, which is where it started, to 6 months. And the reason for that, the sole reason I lengthened it, is because I needed my clients to screw up more and learn how to get back up when they fall down. And that has been the biggest difference maker. Now I believe that a health coaching program should be actually quite long. A health coaching relationship, the longer, the better, so that the client can have a moment to struggle and learn. I mean, the temptation is real. We want our clients to succeed. We'd love it if they succeeded every time in a perfect linear fashion. We want that so badly that we can overstep. But when we take over, we steal autonomy, we diminish competence, and we weaken the relationship. So I always like to tell my coaching students to think like mirror rather than megaphone. Instead of talking, teaching, telling, listen, reflect, guide from beside your client in equal partnership rather than commanding them from out in front. So let's bring self-determination theory to life. Here are 3 client avatars you've probably met before. And if you haven't met them yet, you will. Client A, the people pleaser with no follow through. So the people pleaser client will do everything you say. She's enthusiastic on your coaching calls, but she never follows through. And not only that, I find this person will come onto the coaching calls. And by the way, she'll be really good at celebrating the wins. Everything's going great. I had a great weekend. All's good here. And is not willing to explore the difficulty because doesn't want to let you down. So her need for autonomy is unmet. She's not even doing it for herself. She's doing it for you. I think this is just my sort of perspective on this, but I think this might come up more with influencer types, people with large followings, right? If you happen to have a large following and you're almost if you're well known in your space, people might want to jump into your roster just so they can work with you. And you would really have to work to remind them of what is intrinsically motivating them. That's a kind of a bit of an edge case, but it all goes back to what I've said earlier. We need to remind from jump why the client is doing this for them. So in this particular case, the people pleaser is enthusiastic, rah, she's cheerleading herself, and she's not really following through. She's not really getting outcomes, which is what she wants, because her need for autonomy is unmet. So here's what to do. You could run these thought experiments. I do this all the time in my coaching relationships. Like, okay, it sounds like it's going really well, Sally. Just imagine, like, let's just run this like fun little thought experiment. What if I just vanished for a month? Imagine I went off for a month on a sabbatical. What would you still feel motivated to do? What anchor actions and behaviors would you confidently execute without me to help you? Just and leave it like that. Just a fun, lighthearted thought experiment. And then like give her space to have fun with the idea of co-creating her plan. Co-creation is a really clutch word here. Again, it's hyphenated, so it is one word, co-create. So rather than having her just blindly follow your plan and have to follow you, give her the nudge to try to do it herself. You know, I just thought of another anecdote. You got to hang with me on the anecdotes, friends. I'm full of them. But I teach a dance class once a week. And there's this really elaborate dance choreography that we put together, but we spend a lot of time on it. So we learn the choreography in little bits and pieces, and then we practice these little bits and pieces. We practice the bits and pieces, then we put it together. And my wish is that people would just dance, you know, with reckless abandon. Like, now that you know the moves, let's just dance. But there's always the one or two people who are still staring at me intently and watching me exactly. And even if I do a little flourish with my hand, they copy it. And it's like, I want you to just come into your own body and dance your own way. You basically know what to do now. Please execute the dance on your own. I think that's a good metaphor for what kind of goes on here. A client who's lost autonomy is hooked onto you, and their intrinsic motivations have fallen away. So bring that back. Bring it back all the time. And I already mentioned my method for doing this. My recommendation is get clear on intrinsic motivations in the intake forms and then reference the intake forms constantly as you go through the coaching relationship. It's like your Bible. Client avatar number B. Client avatar B is the all or nothing thinker, the perfectionist. People often identify as perfectionists, which I think is a major crutch. And if you ever hear a client say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, I'm either all in or all out, you want to zero in on that, because that's going to be their great undoing, quite frankly. So this person does great for a week and then has one off day and they spiral. Very common for sure in the weight loss world, but in all aspects of the health and wellness world, it's very common to feel like you've screwed up irreparably by having one off day. But obviously, if we're making lifelong change, we're going to have off days. I mean, Christmas comes every year. You're definitely going to have a little bit too much shortbread. You know what I mean? Metaphorical shortbread. It happens, right? So this client's sense of competence is fragile. They're too worried about screwing it up. She doesn't feel effective unless she's perfect. And that ain't going to work because nobody's perfect. Sorry, that's a trite statement, but it's extremely hard to be perfect at your health endeavors when you're a human being having a lived experience, right? You're going out for dinner, you're having celebrations, you get busy at work, you have a stressful time. Like, perfect isn't going to work. In fact, one of my bratty statements that I like to anchor to in my marketing efforts is inconsistency is key. This is my pushback on the narrative around consistency being key. It's like, well, actually, inconsistency is key because life is very inconsistent. The vicissitudes of life is the way I like to think of it. And it's like, we have to be able to execute when life is imperfect. So there's a competence that has to be built there. So here's what you can do with the low competence, perfect, I'm either all in or all out client. Normalize process. Remind them that process isn't linear. Give them the little staircase, visual I gave you. Hey, Sally, you know what? We're getting to the top of that staircase. And along the way, we have these tiny little steps. And one of those steps actually is screwing up. We have to figure out how to do it. This is all part of the work. I'm so glad you had this difficult time while we were working together. So now we can practice the skill of getting you back on track. So definitely celebrate process over outcome. You have the opportunity here to train your clients to be more process-oriented and less outcome-oriented, and this will carry them far. In fact, I had a client show up on my call this week because I do group coaching calls because my business has grown to the point where I can't do one-on-ones anymore. And the client came in. She's a relatively new client. And she came in and she said, well, I'm frustrated. I'm really frustrated. And I was so excited, truly. I said, I'm really glad that you're feeling frustrated and you came into the coaching call to address it. Because what else could happen is you could feel frustrated and quit, but you didn't. You felt frustrated and you came in here to work through it. This is amazing. Look how you showed up for yourself. Now we're going to learn how to handle frustration, which is one of the steps on the staircase. Like the steps on the staircase aren't just like girls' trip to the mountains, baby shower, dinner at a restaurant. It's like all these sort of scenarios. The steps on the staircase also involve feelings our clients have: frustration, discouragement, disappointment, shame, whatever it is. So my client had a feeling of frustration, which is very hair trigger, a very quittable type of feeling. And instead of quitting, she came into the coaching call and we celebrated that as part of the process. The third client archetype worth mentioning is the ghost. Unfortunately, clients who ghost the process, they sign up, they seem excited, and then crickets. They don't show up for their calls. You send messages, they don't respond. You're worried. You're thinking, do they hate me? Are they having a bad time? What's going on here? Like, what more can I do? A lot of us are running virtual businesses, right? What more can I do? I sent 5 emails. I don't know what else to do. I can't show up at their front door and ring the doorbell. I don't even know where they live. But here's the self-determination theory insight. The relatedness is missing. She doesn't feel safe, known, or seen, so she disengages. Now, this is a chance for you to work on your re-engagement skills as a coach. You're going to have to work on this because you are going to end up with ghosty clients. So start the re-engagement process by really leaning in with empathy. Say, hey, Sally, I just want you to know, absolutely no judgment, no pressure. I know how hard this process can be. I'm here when you're ready. Just simple like that. Empathize with the fact that you know why they ghosted. They were feeling stuck. They were feeling lost. You felt that way before. So the way to bring them back in is to harness the relatedness of it all. This is, again, why health coaching transcends any kind of app or plan or program. We're humans. We can have the human-to-human connection and just be the empathic human that you are. And in the future, learn from this. Build more connection earlier in the coaching relationships. Share your story. Ask deeper questions. Laugh together. Have good feelings. Rapport building is actually one of the elements of a coaching conversation. We have to have a little bit of rapport building, the human-to-human connection. It's not just an interrogation. Did you achieve your goals this week? Why or why not? What are we doing next week? This is actually where the art of reflection is really useful, because reflecting back what clients have said, listening actively, automatically infuses the conversation with a feeling of empathy. I'm with you in this journey. I'm not just the person holding the clipboard dictating the plan. Relatedness. So here are some coaching swaps, kind of like, healthy swaps. You guys ever do healthy swaps for your clients? Here's some coaching swaps. Instead of you should, what you should do is you should have, whey protein in your yogurt. Instead of saying you should, dictation, try, would you be open to? I love that phrase. Would you be open to using some whey protein powder in your yogurt to get a little bit extra protein in your diet? What a beautiful way to frame a question. Like, put that one, imprint it onto your brain, tattoo it on your eyes. Would you be open to? So nice. Instead of saying, here's what you need to do, say instead, what feels like the next right step for you? I love that question too. So if a client comes in and they have a specific scenario they want to address, this happened actually today on the call. A client said she's going to a softball tournament this weekend with her kids. These kids go to softball tournaments all the time. They're always doing this. They're going to leave the house at 8:30 in the morning. They're playing ball all day. There's no food nearby. They won't get a chance to go and eat until 2 p.m., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What should I do? I said, well, what do you normally do? What feels like it could fit? Like, the client has the resources within them. I don't actually know how they should eat at the softball tournament. I need to know what they know about eating at a softball tournament. What have you learned? What do you think you should do? Very, very self-determined. Instead of, again, cheerleading, you're doing great. You lost 3 pounds. Frame it as you're doing great. You're really staying present with the goals we set this week. And as a result, you're seeing these amazing outcomes. You really stayed present with your hunger. You really honored your appetite cues this week. And And look at you, you're getting these amazing outcomes. Congratulations. So there's just, a tempering of the tendency to want to cheerlead. We want to celebrate our client successes. Can we couch that celebration from the perspective of what they've done, their actions, not their characteristics? Not like you're great, but you did great. You know what I mean? Little tiny shifts in language equals big shifts in motivation. So what it comes down to is when a client is rooted in autonomy, competence, and relatedness, they don't really need constant handholding. They're self-powered, they're self-determined. They want to keep going even when it's hard. And this is the kind of motivation that lasts. And it also really removes a little bit of the burden from you, the coach, to have to do it all for them. First of all, if you do it all for them, they're not going to have good outcomes. They're not self-determined if they're doing it for you, if they're doing it what you tell them to do. So this absolves you from having to do all the work, from having to work harder than your clients work, but it's more importantly the kind of motivation that lasts so they can get to the top of the staircase. So to all my coaches listening, be the guide, not the gas pedal. Be the mirror, not the megaphone. Be the partner, not the boss. And trust that when conditions are right, people will rise to the occasion.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.